All right, so I'm going to start off by saying I have professionally washed dishes for a living also. Okay? I need to start it with that. I cannot claim that I have had a lot of jobs and can relate to a lot of people if I have not worked in the food industry. That is just my opinion. Obviously, other people are going to have different opinions. That's fine. I'm just saying, for me, it's hard for me to claim that I've had a lot of jobs if I've never worked in the food industry. I think the food industry is probably the mother of all industries, even though I've worked in construction, I've worked in uh, lots of kind of messy, inglorious jobs. I was a exterminator. I've done lots of other things. I was doing Panera Bread, just to make it clear. I was a dishwasher for Panera Bread in Briargate, the Briargate location in Colorado Springs, Colorado, as well as the Centera location in Loveland, Colorado. And there is no restaurant chain that goes through dishes faster than Panera Bread, especially during Christmas. Okay? So we got that out of the way. I should also probably establish that I was born in Utah, raised in Colorado, northern Colorado, but I've also lived in the Springs. I then did school in Portland, Oregon. Then I was a youth pastor. I was a tour guide in New York City, a youth pastor in New Jersey, a worship leader in Brooklyn. I worked in Goodwill Rescue Mission in Newark, New Jersey for a short time. I was also I went back to Colorado Springs for a time, and I worked landscaping there as well as Panera and at a golf course, my first golf course. Then I worked, I think I was also a deputy clerk for a time. I helped with an election really quick, just taking votes. I wasn't campaigning for any political party. Then, let's see, I moved back to Fort Collins. I worked for stonemasonry. I did all that stuff. I'll talk about more of that later. Let's just talk locations. So then I went to Wyoming for a time as an apprentice electrician. And then I also lived in Houston, Texas. And then I came back here to Portland to finish my master's. And now I drive buses long distance. How can I say that I can relate to a lot of people if I've never lived in New York City? How can I say that I can relate to a lot of people if I've never lived in Wyoming? That's like the craziest variation. I have to say that New York City and Portland are crazy places to live, but I really do want to say the craziest place I have ever lived is Casper, Wyoming. And you just have to check it out for yourself. Good people in Casper. I played with 2 different bands, local bands. Good place. Cowboy life is a different type of life. Let's see. Houston, Texas, I think I already mentioned, and now I actually know Sacramento pretty well, which has become like a hidden gem for me. I'm fascinated by the city of Sacramento, California, and I really hope that someday they can win an NBA championship, because I think that would just be killer. Sacramento kind of gives me this vibe of like, it's this mishmash. It's a blue-collar city, which I like. That's at least the feel I got of it. Maybe I'm wrong. And it's full of people that I think I could really relate to if I stuck around a little longer. But usually I can only be there for a little bit of enough time to have some Indian food at a restaurant I really like and maybe check out old Sacramento City really briefly. And then, of course, I know the Northwest really well. I've lived in Portland twice now, and I go through Seattle 4 times a week because of my job, and I stay in Vancouver. Okay, and you'll see why all of this is pertinent if you tune into the second part of this introduction which will start as soon as you see my clothes change. Also, I'll just say, what is this? Just to answer what all this is in a couple of descriptive words, I would say what you're tuning into right now, and thank you for tuning in, is going to be an audio Bible, kind of an audio Bible format mixed with a podcast format. That's the closest I can get to it, and the more loosey-goosey it is, the more I seem to be enjoying it. So that's the general direction. Audio Bible mixed with a podcast. Hey everybody, hey, it's Michael. This is just an intro to a new idea. I'm just trying to let you guys know. Thanks, friends and family, for watching this. It's definitely an out-of-the-box concept that I'm trying to get off the ground here. And strangers, friends, family, thanks for giving it a shot. This won't be for everybody, but I'm really excited because this is really taken off in my own heart. I've already completed Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, and those are posted now. Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, and First Samuel, actually, all 4 of those books. That's over 70 chapters of the Bible already logged, and have a little bit of music in the background so you can hopefully enjoy it while you drive is mainly what I'm thinking of, or if you're cleaning, or you just want to be able to listen to the Word of God and some guy like me. And some of my readings I'm more relaxed. Other my readings I'm more stayed towards the book. But I think in everything, I don't think there's anything hugely heretical that I bring up, because I read the word out loud and then I just simply share my observations. Sometimes I tell a joke if I think if a joke comes to mind, or I might make a reference to pop culture or something. I think in most cases it fits. I also like the conviction of this for me is that the Bible can be understood by all people, and all people, it doesn't matter who you are, race or class or education level especially, you can understand the Bible and you can derive enjoyment from it, and you don't have to dress yourself up or somehow feel like you have to be a professor or a theologian or a pastor. I'm not trying to disrespect these institutions or these people. I go to Bridgetown Church and I think the world of Bridgetown. I can't even believe I go to Bridgetown. It's such an amazing church. But I'm also not gonna ignore what I see as somebody, especially as somebody who has just come from the academic world. I just got my master's from Multnomah University of Multnomah, that has had better days, but mainly I'm going to give my shout out to Gary Friesen, Jay Hell. Gary Friesen taught the Pentateuch or the Torah for longer than I've been alive. And then also Ray Lubeck and Rebecca Josberger for my master's. And there are other people, Damani, Jay Held, but these are all, I would say, especially Gary and Rebecca and Ray Lubeck, Rebecca Josberger, and Gary Friesen are Bible teachers that are worldwide known, at least in the academic sense of the word. I want to, so I'm giving credit where credit is due there, but at the same time, I want to just voice my concern. And this is a real concern. I believe academic institutions have become hugely imbalanced. I think they've lost their way on multiple levels. I'm not saying all professors are bad. I'm not saying all schools are bad, but my feel is they've lost their way. They've become hugely self-important, and I'm not just talking about Bible teachers. I'm talking about even science teachers. I'm talking about English teachers, education, teachers who are trying to teach teachers to become teachers. We've just lost our way, and this is me bringing the tools in the best way I know how, through Rumble and hopefully Spotify and YouTube, to just decentralize that imbalance. This is my best shot, right? And this is also for me, because I have my own personal journey that this has been very cleansing for me to just read this stuff out loud and make this as an artist. I'm, as many of you know who know me personally, I'm a musician more than anything. And I've sort of lost my love of music over the past few months, I would say, maybe the past 1 or 2 years. In 2020, music almost saved my life. I was so depressed. I started playing out up at Mount Tabor, and I played and made... it saved my life. It saved my life. I wrote more songs than I've ever written. I met more people than I ever imagined, and lots of other things that were just huge blessings. But now it seems like a new time has come where I just don't, like, nothing is energizing me like just reading the word out loud and talking about what I see and what I hear. And so that's a little bit of my personal journey. I'm not going to go into it hugely. But the vision of all of this, I'm just going to stick to this for a second. I hope I'm not doubling down too much. But I just think it's super important for us as people to know that we can educate ourselves. If we have a question, we already know this with YouTube, right? If you want to fix your car, YouTube can basically show you how to do it. If you want to learn how to make a cake, in most cases, the internet, YouTube, other sources can show you how to do it. You don't even have to go to school. You don't have to pay tuition. You don't have to bow down and give homage to some professor who swears that they're the end all of whatever subject you're interested in. I'm not saying experts aren't important. I'm just saying experts need to know their place. Like, hopefully experts are there to serve the rest of the people. Hopefully they're trying to make their communities and their surrounding, the society around them, they're trying to give back, you know. And there's a problem when these so-called experts actually use their expertise to keep people down so that they can just kind of walk over them and kind of subject everybody to awe and wonder as to how far above they are of the people. I just think that's a huge problem. We even see that in Jesus's life. Like, he embodied taking all the Pharisees down a notch and having the common touch. I think that's even like a classic poem penned by Rudyard Kipling that, like, it's called If. You should look it up. I didn't even think I would talk about this poem today, but it's coming to mind, where it's talking about a good man and saying, like, if you can walk with kings and emperors, but you don't lose the common touch. That's what Jesus could do, right? He could talk with Caesar. He could talk with Pilate. He never talked with Caesar, but he talked with Pilate, right? And he talked with the high priest Caiaphas. He talked with Nicodemus. He talked with all these heavy hitters, right? And probably heady people. And he could run with all of those guys and run circles around those guys, but he could also just be with common people, whether they were children or beggars or blind or the lame or women, or blue-collar fishermen, or, and I think for the most part, experts have lost that ability. They don't know how to do that anymore. And it's a tragedy, and it's to their detriment, because their expertise was supposed to elevate society. It wasn't supposed to just make them feel good. And that's just my opinion. Maybe some people would disagree with that, but that is definitely my strong opinion. And that's why I want to read. That's part of the reason, at least. There's my own personal journey that I'm not going to go into a whole bunch right now. But another reason why I'm doing this is to let you guys enjoy the scriptures from some guy. I've had more blue-collar jobs than I even know how to count. I've laid stone before, I've helped lay brick before, I've mowed so many lawns I can't count, I've had multiple landscaping jobs, multiple construction jobs. I wasn't necessarily good at all of these things, but I did all of these things. I've had my CDL, I've driven school buses, I've driven city buses, I've driven charter buses, I've driven concrete trucks, I've driven FedEx trucks, I've driven in a UPS truck for a few seasons. I'm not even trying to show off, I'm just saying my life has been packed with regular jobs. And I've grown to respect the men that I've worked with and walked with and who have showed me their trades. And I think in part I was trying to find my way, and another part of me was experiencing as much of life as I could. And I think that's something that writers and songwriters love doing. It would drive like a normal person nuts to have that many job changes, but for somebody like me, it's crazy to say this, but we enjoy that type of variation. Somebody like me, Woody Guthrie comes to mind. He was a drifter, and I'm definitely not at his songwriting level. I'm not going to claim that I am. He wasn't exactly a pleasant person to be around either, which is a way I'd like to be different than Woody. But Woody did experience a lot of things. He was the guy who wrote "This land is your land, this land is my land," which is another interesting story. Lots of people misinterpret that song. But what I'm saying is songwriters love to experience lots of different things. It's kind of what turns our brains on, it turns our imaginations on. And that's why I've grown to love these people. I've worked with stonemasons who will always be 100 times better at stonemasonry than me. I got a little bit good at it. There are some walls that I've stacked, some stone that I've laid that I'm proud of, but not to the level that these master stonemasons have. I wasn't a good concrete truck driver at all. I was a decent FedEx driver. I was a decent renovator, but I made some mistakes when I was doing construction. I'm a good driver. I would say I'm a very good driver. I can at least claim that. But this is kind of an homage, because I'm a pretty good Bible reader, and I would say I'm a good songwriter. And me sharing these scriptures is basically my homage to these people, these great people that I've worked with throughout the years. To all my landscaping brothers, from south of the border, to all my construction buddies, to all my fellow drivers, even education workers that I've been with, because I worked in education as a school bus driver and a paraprofessional. This goes out to all of the people that I have rubbed shoulders with over the past 20 years. And I just want you to know that, like, the Bible's for you. The Bible is for you. You don't have to genuflect to people, to so-called experts, and say that this book, that the Bible isn't for you because you don't have some title. Like, the Bible's for you. Like, and I would encourage you just to treat it like a friend that you really care about, who knows, you know, this friend loves you, and you love that friend. And what do you do when you get in an argument or you're confused with your friend? You work it out. You talk it over. You try to get the context of a misunderstanding. So if you misunderstand the Bible, something I was taught by these amazing teachers, and they were experts. I'm not saying all experts are bad. Lots of experts are good. I'm just saying lots of experts these days have lost their way, and I stand by that. But the teachers who taught me, who I really do love and respect to this day, they taught me context, context, context. So if you're confused, if you're lost about a verse or a chapter, just read a few chapters before that chapter. Read around the verse that's confusing you. 10 verses above, 10 verses below. Read a few chapters beyond it. Like, get as much of a wide frame as you can. You know, I think even photography, if you zero in on one thing in a photo, it can be interesting. But if you zoom out more and more, the more of a big picture and the more understanding you have of the greater world of that one thing that you first zeroed in on. And that's also true in relationships, right? Like, if you're confused as to who somebody is, if you take them out for lunch and ask them what their family life is like or their upbringing, things might start to make sense as to who they are and why they act the way they act, right? And the Bible is just like that. Something that I want to say, in some ways, even though I loved Gary and I loved Needham and I loved Ray, all of these men have taught me great things. But Rebecca Josberger, I'm going to just give you a shout out and just say that like the 3 questions that you posed that I remember were so life-changing to me, and I think they could be life-changing for anybody who's listening to this. That if you just ask yourself, if you come across a chapter in the Bible that is hard to grasp for you for whatever reason, and that happens to everybody. It doesn't matter how great of a academic they are. It's happened to everyone. Trust me. If we just ask these 3 questions, we can get really far. So, what was said? How was it said? How is it being said? And why is it being said that way? What was said? How is it said? And why was it being said that way? I mean, and I'll just give like a laughable example like this. It's kind of cliche, but it gets the point across, so please be patient. Especially those of you who are women who are listening to this. So like, if a man is talking to their wife or their girlfriend, and he says, "Hey, can I go out with the guys tonight? Is that okay?" And she responds, "Oh, that's fine." You know, depending on her tone, she could be right about that. Like, but if, like, she could be honest about that. She could be saying, "No, it's fine. Just go have a good time with your friends." She could be genuine about that. On the other hand, if she tenses up, her neck gets tense, and she's very short, and the boyfriend or the husband says, "Hey, can I go out with the guys?" She says, "It's fine, just do it," right? obviously that's kind of a different story, and men who have had any life experience know what I'm talking about with this illustration, and most women do, or anybody understands the difference of tone, right? The same word is used, but how is it being said and why is it being said that way? Those are just basic questions that are important for interpretation as we're getting to know people. And we're trying to understand what they mean by the words that they use. And so, yeah, it's kind of like, it's an overstated thing. I even heard Tim Mackey, he's the Bible Project guy, and he's great, right? Him and John are having a quick conversation about words as they're talking about the Psalms, and that, like, words don't have meaning, we give them meaning. And of course, that's kind of an extreme statement, but like, we know what it means. We know what they mean by that. That words only have the meaning that we give them, right? We could, it's like Shakespeare, a rose by any other name. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, right? We could give that object, a beautiful rose, a different name. We could call a rose a lampstand. And of course, we don't think of a rose when we hear the word lampstand. We think of a lamp. But that's only because we've given it that name or given it that meaning. So anyway, not to go too far off the rails, but like, it's important that we ask those three basic questions: what is being said, how is it being said, and why is it being said that way? And then just go to context. Like, if something's confusing, we just zoom out a little bit more. And if it's still confusing, zoom out a little bit more. And if it's still confusing, zoom out even more. And these are things that we can practice, not just with the Bible, but our relationships. If we're scientists, hopefully we do it. If we're lawyers, we do it. If we're mechanics, we do it. Like, these principles are universal. And yeah, so anyway, also something that I just want to make clear is these readings are not sermons, okay? Definitely not sermons. I'm not a pastor, and I'm not pulling pastors down either by anything I've said here. Like, pastors have their place, and I love the pastor team at my church. I'm not saying pastors are perfect. I'm just saying pastors are important, right? But these are not sermons. This is just me reading the Bible, and if you could imagine, the way I kind of see this is like, if you could imagine walking with me through a beautiful mansion, and I don't care if it's old or a brand new mansion, but like, we're reading through a lot of chapters in these readings, and if you could just treat every chapter that I read on these videos sort of like a new room in a beautiful mansion, and maybe some of the rooms are brand new and renovated, or maybe some of the rooms are old and there's dusty books everywhere, and fascinating stuff that's just built up over time, right? Like, I'm not saying, as I read all of this stuff, I'm not saying at all that there isn't more to find. There aren't more gems to find. You can find them. You're going to find stuff in these passages that I will never find. I'm only giving you guys my perspective of the space that we go into as I read these passages. And I'm sure if I read those same passages next week, I would probably find different stuff. It's the beauty of Scripture, you know? And, you know, it really has reinfused my life. I've been so depressed. If I can be transparent with you, I've I probably should have started doing this like 2 years ago, but here I'm doing it now, and it feels like obedience to me, if I'm honest. Like, I feel I still battle depression and anxiety a great deal, but I can tell that when I'm doing this, when I'm reading these scriptures and I'm just having fun with it, I'm telling a joke if a joke comes to mind, I'm telling another story from my life or from history, if that comes to mind, or if nothing comes to mind, I'm just reading the scripture outright. Like, it's really helped to elevate my soul, give me joy, and clear up my vision. And I believe it does that for any one of us who takes the time. And yeah, I have no idea why I started with Joshua, other than there's a little thing up here from here. I think I can even go to this. This is my entryway. There's my picture of Muhammad Ali here, right by my refrigerator, my anchor here, boat above my refrigerator, and then right up here is this thing, and I'm gonna sound like a total mama's boy, but that's a little sign I got from my mom a long time ago, and I put it way above my entryway. Most people who come into my place will never even know it's there, but I don't care, because I'm not trying to I'm not trying to impress anybody. You'll also notice that, like, my language may not be the cleanest sometime in some of these videos, and yet I'm just trying to read the word for myself here. And so, like, a part of me wants to clean my language up, and if the Holy Spirit really convicts me about that, then I'll clean it up. But, like, it's important to me that I come to you guys as I really am, because that defeats the purpose of all of these videos if I try to, like, spruce myself up and try to make myself look better than I actually am. And furthermore, I just don't believe that God is a God who looks on the outside of us, who's wanting us to spruce ourselves up. I'm not gonna try to be more, like, I'm not trying to, like, be derogatory in any of these things. And if I go too far ever, I'm going to try my best to walk it back. I can promise you that. But, like, the last book that I just finished, literally just a couple minutes ago before I started this video, was Samuel. And Samuel is all about the heart, and one of the most famous verses in the book of Samuel, if not the whole Bible, is when David is being anointed, and David's out there in the field and being a shepherd, and he's probably hanging out with shepherds, and David was a noble young man, obviously, but he's still a blue collar boy, and he's a rough kid. Like, he could kill lions and bears. He was a tough kid, right? I'm not claiming I know what his language was like. I'm just saying God is a God who looks on the heart and not exteriors. And I don't just mean that with, like, language on whether a human uses curse words or not. I'm even talking about that with titles. We talked about experts at the beginning of this video. Titles, status, you guys, I think you guys get where I'm coming from. God is a God who looks at the heart, where we often think we're looking at what matters and we're not. So, yeah. So anyway, I hope all of that makes sense. If you've listened this whole time, I really want to thank you. And I'm going to link this up with my first reading, which I believe is Joshua chapter 1 and 2. If you want to listen to like an interesting review on Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, just look up my video, Women in Judges. And I just talk about all the crazy stories about women in the book of Judges, along with like other unlikely heroes. And there are also some kind of crazy, of course, there are some really unusual stories in Joshua and Ruth that are of note too. So that video, it's called Woman in Judges. Look that up. Also, the title of my channel is Bible with the Frenchman. So that's the title of this YouTube channel. There's also a YouTube channel that I'm making called Saint Michael the Frenchman, which is going to have my music on it and other thoughts that aren't really associated with the Bible. And then my Spotify is also Saint Michael the Frenchman. And I'm kind of just figuring out like how to build all of this stuff out, because I can just tell I've been watching too much YouTube over the past few years, and now God's just like, Michael, you need to start making stuff. So that's what I'm trying to do. Thanks again, and yeah, hope you enjoy this stuff. It was this, I don't know. It wasn't the middle finger. I'm just saying hello and goodbye and be well. All right, see ya. Okay, I felt compelled, like I need to just mention one other thing. I went to school to be a chaplain. Okay, I'm not a chaplain right now. I drive buses for a living. Right now, I actually kind of like my job. I drive to Canada all the time. And Canada is a magical place. I come from Portland, I drive through Seattle, and then I end in BC, and it's gorgeous, okay? It's a gorgeous time. We all have things in our lives that we'd like to change, other things in our lives that we really love, and there's things that I love about that job and other things that I wish were different. But I feel like I need to share with you guys that I went to school to be a chaplain. I've done almost 10 years of Bible training in higher education. So in my undergrad, I went to University of Multnomah in Portland and studied under Ray Lubeck and David Needham were my Bible teachers. Wheeler was my Greek teacher, right? I'm trying to just let you know that I do have a little bit of foundation in this stuff. And then I came back over a decade later when I was wiser, older and fatter, in 2017. Yeah. And then I was there for almost 5 more years. And I studied again under Ray, who is a legend in his own right. And I also studied under Josberger. A lot of other professors, but those are the ones that were Bible. And it is funny because I just talked about experts and how I think we've become over-reliant on them. But I'm also trying to let you guys know that I don't just dismiss out-of-hand experts. If you have a big plumbing issue, chances are you will probably want a plumber, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I have a good friend of mine who just, in fact, started his own plumbing business after being a plumber with a major company in Portland for years. There's a reason why we have dentists. There's a reason why we have doctors. It's just important that I think that experts remember why they are experts and hopefully are doing it out of service. All of us are doing it out of service towards others. And I think even more important than me like showing off my resume to you guys, I'm not really showing off, I'm just trying to let you know where I'm coming from, all right? Like, I hope so many more people make audio Bibles. There's this girl named Melanie Mack who inspired me to do this. She just finished the whole Bible, by the way, and you can tune in to her. I think it's Melanie Mack, Bible with Melanie Mack. I have no idea what her training is. I almost hope she has no training at all. She just read through the whole Bible. She didn't comment on anything. She's about to finish the Bible tomorrow, I think, actually, the last 3 chapters of Revelation. And I'm so proud of her, even though I don't know her. Yeah, like, God just uses us. He uses the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. He used John the Baptist. He used Jesus. He used Gideon. He used Moses, who felt like he didn't even know how to talk, right? He used a shepherd boy named David. He used another shepherd boy named Joseph in Genesis. He used a late bloomer named Abraham earlier in Genesis. And there's all sorts of other unlikely Cinderella stories that God uses. Even in sports, we freaking love it when an unlikely team beats another team. Like, I'm a huge basketball fan, and I just saw the Bulls, the Chicago Bulls, beat out Luka Doncic and LeBron James and the Lakers. Like, we freaking love those buzzer beaters. We love it when so-called ordinary people surprise us, because it makes us feel and remember that there's greatness inside of us. Like, and I really do believe that. I believe that for every one of you. If you're down and out, even for my sake, I need to hear this. That, like, if you feel forgotten, God's not forgotten you. He has you right where he wants you, and if you look to him, he can do amazing things with you. One of the reasons why I wanted to be a chaplain is I've always loved praying with people. I've always loved, and I give that credit to my mom, my dad, and my grandma, probably. Yeah, my grandma was Catholic, and she would always pray with me before she passed away. My mom has always prayed with us. My dad has always prayed with us. So after I did my last take, it was good, but I sense that maybe a prayer would be fitting. So if you don't mind, I'm going to just pray really simply right now that God would just bless you in your journey with all the gifts that you have, with all the marvelous ways that you've been put together. That God would, as you listen alongside me to the words of the scriptures, that you would feel refreshed, and that God would guide you in your journey and bless you in yours. Lord, just thank you for your word. Thank you for this exciting journey that you've taken me on already. We've read through so many chapters, and we have many, many more to go. Pray that you would just bless the hearers. And as a pastor from our church often prays before he preaches, pray, Lord, that you would make us good hearers, but better doers. What a beautiful way to start. Make us good hearers, but better doers. And we pray these things in your name. Amen. All right. See you on the first one, or whichever one you click on.